Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Yes, this is not my car. My car is currently in the shop. So someone asked me about Jack Miller, txsheepdog72, aka Diddlin Jack. To quote him, I don't care if you diddle dogs or you diddle kids. As long as you're filming the police, he has no problem with you. Maybe that's a paraphrase, but it's close enough. I mean, it was bad. It was bad enough that he took down the video where he said it in. For the record, I personally care very deeply if you diddle kids. That's what God made wood chippers for. Anyway, that's not what I am making this video on. Someone asked me about the state of his current cases. He had 3 active cases that I'm aware of. He had the Almost Park resisting arrest, and he was convicted on that. He was represented by ya boy, CJ Chickenhawk Grisham, a guy who calls himself Chickenhawk, representing a guy who doesn't care if you diddle kids. Makes you think. Anyway, Chickenhawk is representing Texas Sheepdog on all 3 of the active cases, or most recently active cases. Anyway, it was a misdemeanor resisting arrest. He was convicted on it despite CJ Grisham's best efforts. He appealed it to the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals, whatever, in Texas. And initially, he had counsel appointed to represent him on the appeal. That counsel filed what's called an Anders motion, saying that there's nothing really appealable here. So the court, and I want to be relieved because there's nothing appealable here, and I don't want to file anything frivolous. So then the court appointed another attorney who filed the same Anders motion, saying, "Hey, I don't want to represent him on this because it's frivolous. There's nothing appealable here." So then he got CJ Grisham to represent him on the appeal, and the court found that nothing that CJ Grisham put into CJ Grisham's appellate brief was good grounds for appeal. He got knocked down on everything. I think 3 evidentiary kind of objections and 1 other objection that apparently, if I remember correctly, wasn't raised during trial. And if an objection to something should have been raised at trial to be preserved for appeal, because you can only appeal things that you preserve at trial, generally speaking, well, that's a negative reflection on the trial attorney. So anyway, Diddlin Jack has still 2 felony cases. 1, possession of CP. Let me just go through this in my head. Guy gets charged with possession of CP. I think it's for someone under the age of 10 that doesn't mind if you diddle dogs or you diddle kids, that has an attorney representing him in the case that goes by the name of Chickenhawk. You know, sometimes I just marvel at the absurdity of this world. Like, how could you end up in a situation like that? Anyway, so he has that current felony that still shows awaiting arraignment from back in like early 2024, I think. And there's been no activity in that case since like June, I think, if I remember correctly, of last year, 2025. And he has another one, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, that is the same song and dance. Nothing done on it since like June of 2025. Now, there might be a reason that's not apparent from the online court records why. He might be in like pretrial diversion or whatever they call it in Texas. Basically, if you are a good boy and you complete, this much time without reoffending, and you do this much community service, blah, 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 right? If you do all these conditions, essentially, like, the court won't, so you make a plea, the court doesn't accept the plea. It doesn't say, like, okay, I'm entering this plea now. But you make the plea, then you get the pretrial, and then pretrial diversion, and then if you successfully complete it, then usually something along the lines of Texas might do it different, but generally speaking, the state would then dismiss the charges or something like that. So it could be something like that. I don't know. It is kind of interesting that there's nothing showing up in it. I don't see any indication that he's on one, but who knows? For something that a lot of sovereign citizens like Common Joe doesn't understand is you only really have two options at an arraignment. You could either plead not guilty or you could plead guilty. And if you don't say anything at all, you're pleading not guilty. Because essentially, you're going to go to trial if you don't plead guilty. So anything other than pleading guilty is pleading not guilty. You could say blue waffles or whatever you want. But unless you say guilty, you're going to go to trial, and the court will enter a not guilty plea on your behalf. That is not a violation of your rights or a violation of the law. That is accepted practice in every state that I'm aware of. Obviously, I don't practice in every state. 49 of the states I don't practice in, but in every state that I'm aware of, if you don't plead, standing mute is pleading not guilty. It's the same thing. Saying anything other than guilty is pleading not guilty. I know Common Joe didn't understand it, but Common Joe doesn't understand a lot of things. Speaking of which, I did call the St. Charles County Circuit Court. I think it's St. Charles County, Missouri. I could be wrong on that. I called the court where the trial was to see if I could get a copy of the sound recording for that trial. It's $25. They put it on a CD, but you have to pay in person. I'm not flying to Missouri to buy that. So I would really appreciate it if somebody would buy that and upload it onto YouTube and send me a link. That would be phenomenal. If you are strapped for cash and you do that, the first person who sends me a link to the video and a receipt showing that they paid for it, I will PayPal you or Zelle you the money to cover the cost of it. So, someone is interested in seeing it and they're willing to spend the money for it and to hear my analysis on it, I'd appreciate it. I'm sure it's all nonsense. Nothing that Common Joe says regarding the law makes any sense at all. And nothing that he generates with ChatGPT makes any sense at all. But it's kind of interesting, and I'd like to see it. So anyway, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Have a great day and a great weekend.